Hey everyone, so we're going to recap what we did for our fourth week of our SALT series. Remember, SALT, we're just talking about things, big questions that might be interesting to people who don't normally want to talk about God or who get mad at you when you talk about stuff. We have some videos that we have on the Facebook page or on the youth website from Dare to Share Ministries, and they ask some really big questions that might be able to help you start conversations with your friends that maybe wouldn't otherwise talk to you about God or anything like that. So this week, the video was titled, Then What? And it's just a girl talking about all the milestones you go through in life, like making sure you get your driver's license and you finish high school, you get your diploma, you graduate, going to college, getting a job, making money, starting a family, retiring, becoming a grandparent, getting married, all that stuff, right? And she's like, so you do all that, then what? And then it ends, and then you end up passing away, right? Like, what happens after you die? Like, that's the real question, but you go through all these things, and then what happens, right? It's a really cool video, and it would definitely start some good conversations with people, even if you don't quite get to being able to tell them about Jesus. It's going to make them start thinking, because it's a big question to ask, and it's something we all have to face if we want to or not. It's all going to happen, so. We all have choices in life, and we all have opportunities to take different paths. And our choices each day lead us in one direction or another. Sometimes we feel that our choices are inevitable, or that we must get to major life events like we talked about: college, graduation, getting married, retirement, stuff like that. And then we'll have made it, right? Like, we think we get through these major life things, and it's just like a checklist, right? And we just go through and check them off, and that's what life is about. But it's not, right? There's always something else down the list. There's always something more. So life has to be more than just going through those checklist things. So in our small groups, we asked, what is the problem that can come from looking at life as just going from one milestone to the next, right? Like, right now you're like, I can't wait to get my driver's license, and I can't wait to graduate high school, and then I can't wait to go to college and get graduated from, what could be the problem with that? And we talked about how it's really easy to look so far ahead and get so focused on getting to that next goal in life that you don't really pay attention to what's happening now, right? You might miss all the amazing stuff that's happening now. You might miss time hanging out with people that you care about that you might not be able to see for a very long time, because you're like, oh, I have to do this right now, and you get really focused, right? It kind of messes up our relationships, just making life a checklist, right? Because then sometimes we can make people a checklist, and people aren't a checklist. They're people. So if we keep our lives narrowly focused on attaining our own next goal, we're going to miss out on the rich fullness of life, and we might miss out on what God has planned for us because we're too busy saying what our checklist should be. And maybe we should ask God be more willing to ask God, what does He want from us, and what does He think our life should be doing right now, not just us trying to get to our goal. So, and we read in Romans chapter 6, verse 16, Paul wrote that, don't you realize that you can choose your own master, right? He says you can choose your own master, right? You can choose to live for God, or you can choose to live for yourself, or you can choose to live for this other thing. You can choose to live for sin. He's like, you get to choose, right? That's an amazing thing to say. Paul is reminding us that ultimately the choice is up to us, whether we serve ourselves or we put what we think is important above everything else. And that's sin in a nutshell, right? It's just putting ourselves first. That's what sin is, and everything that comes along with that, right? Or we can choose to listen to God's wisdom for our lives. Think about it like this. Imagine you are in a cave, and something happens on the way you came in, right? And it collapses. You can't go back that way, so you have to go out a different way. And it's dark. You don't have a light with you. I don't know why you would go in a cave without a light, but you did. It happened. And so you have to go this new way that you've never been before. And you can either choose to just go for it on your own, right? Remember, you don't have a light. You've never been in here before. You have no idea where you're going. Or there's a guy with you, and the guy has been giving tours of that cave for 30 years, right? He does it every day. He knows where everything is. What are you going to do? Are you just going to be like, see you later, peace out, and try and find your way on your own? Or are you going to grab on a hold of the guy's shirt and follow him and listen to him as he tells you where to go and what to look out for? It's a big question. Some of us just don't trust people, and we think that we can do stuff better. But that's really arrogant, right? You should want to choose the guy who's walked through it before tons of times and trust him to help you instead of thinking that you're awesome enough and like you just know where all like the ledges and all the slippery spots are and like where the bear lives in the cave. Like, right? Like, that's really arrogant because you've never been in it before. But this guy's done it every day of his life for 30 years. You're going to follow that guy if you have common sense, hopefully, right? So the same thing goes for our life. We can just feel around in the dark trying to figure out like what we need to do and just hope we're grabbing at the right thing. Or we can hope that we're just making the best choice too. Or we can accept the offer to follow someone who knows the trail very well. And that person is Jesus, right? Jesus came down as God in human form on earth, right? That's what Jesus is. He lived a life with the same pressures as us, the same pressures to conform to culture, to be selfish, and to make the same kind of choices for immediate gratification that we all have, right? But instead, he navigated life perfectly because he is the author and creator of all life, right? So if life, going back to the cave metaphor, is like a cave, Jesus is not only the best guide of it, he's the person who made the cave, right? Like, he knows everything about it. So we should want to follow him, just as it would be crazy to go on your own if you were stuck in that cave. I think it seems equally as crazy for us to just go through life hoping we're making these random right decisions on these giant issues when we could be following Jesus, who created everything for himself. And he loves us and he wants us to follow him. He's asking us to follow him. So it's us saying no to following him and saying no to hearing what he has to say about things. It's not good. So a lot of times the then what, our checklist, is about what we think will make us happy, right? So I just want you to take some time to think about what might be wrong with just making life about your own happiness, right? If the goal of your life is just about your own happiness, what could go wrong? A lot of things. You could hurt a lot of other people because they don't help you be happy, right? Like, it doesn't matter what happens to that person because whatever, like I make this decision, it's going to hurt them, but it'll make me happy right now. It might not make you happy in the long run, right? Happiness is a fleeting thing. It's something that we're always chasing. So I just want you guys to remember that life isn't a big checklist. It's not about rushing from one thing to the next because you're never just made it, right? It's about just existing with God and loving him and being in a relationship with him. If you don't believe me, read Ecclesiastes. It's in the Bible. It's near Psalms, Proverbs. It was written by King Solomon, and it has some wonderful advice because he was rich and he had everything you could ever want. He was a king and he could do whatever he wanted for the most part. And he tried everything and he realized that everything he tried was worthless because it didn't fill that void in him. And he realized at the end the only thing that he could do in life is to trust God and love him and follow him and be in that relationship. And that was the sum of all the good that he could do in life. So he was like, chasing your own happiness doesn't mean anything. He's like, follow God and be in a relationship with him. And that was from a wise person looking back on their life after having tried all that. So we could be wise and listen to other people's advice like that who have gone through it, or we could just continue to be arrogant and think that we can find the best answers and that there's something magical about us that we're going to get it right where everyone else is messed up. Probably not going to happen, right? So take some time, get to know Jesus, be in that relationship. That's what life is about. It's not about chasing the next thing. Love you guys. God bless.